Welcome back everyone, it's Alex here, doing another breakdown video on Better Call Saul. This time it's Season 6, Episode 10, Nippy. Going into this episode, I had no idea what to expect, as I hadn't seen anything from it yet, and the trailers so far have been very secretive about what we would see in the coming episodes. All we saw last week was a department store, some shouting, and that was it. This time, we finally understand what that is. If you're new to the channel, basically I'm going to be breaking down the episode, talking about it in depth, as well as just giving my overall thoughts. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe, ring that little bell icon. I've wasted enough of your time, let's go ahead and just jump right into it. As we open up the episode, it's apparent that we are coming back to the Gene Takovic storyline, as all of his scenes has always taken place in black and white. It's honestly been since 2020 since we've seen Gene. I believe the very last time we saw him was the first episode of Season 5, and we haven't seen him at all this season. So that's been pretty exciting to revisit his time. Not only that, but dedicate an entire episode to it, which I'll come back around to later, but I seriously wasn't expecting it. I also didn't expect to like it as much as I did, just because I only like this story in small doses, but for what we got here, I got a kick out of it. We open up with Marion. She's shopping, getting her groceries, even talking to the deli guy a bit, and on her way home, her scooter gets stuck. She comes across Gene, who's putting up some flyers for his missing dog Nippy, even though we already know that he doesn't really have a dog. The question is, why is he putting up these flyers? And who is Carol Burnett's character? Because clearly he's singling her out. But as we arrive back to her place, it is very apparent that the next man that comes into the scene is the cab driver that we had seen earlier. Now, fun fact, this is actually a different actor who has played the cab driver. In earlier episodes, the character was actually played by Don Harvey.
I just want to say hi, I'm a big fan. You know, back in the day when I lived in Albuquerque with my ex, I used to see you everywhere.
This time he's played by Pat Healy. I gotta say, for a recast, if you're somebody who's only seen the show once, I almost wouldn't have really recognized it. I would have thought something maybe is a little bit off, but it's been like 4 years since the last time we saw him up close. But nonetheless, it wasn't a recast that really took me out of it. But as the cab driver named Jeff comes home to find his mother talking with Gene, he's kind of hesitant, as we are as the audience. We know that Gene has some intentions here, but we don't exactly know what it is. Now, I didn't think anything bad was going to happen. I doubt that Gene has it in him to do anything drastic or dark, but nonetheless, it's a pretty tense scene. Later, we finally get them walking out to the trash can, and that's when he lets them know, hey, you want in the game, which really is just good insurance for making sure that Gene doesn't get thrown in jail. I forgot to add this at the beginning, so this is me coming back re-recording, but basically, this is the first time the opening cuts abruptly. Halfway through the intro, it cuts to a blue screen with text, Better Call Saul, basically saying that this is the end of the tape that Gene was watching in the very first episode. It means that it's worn out now, and we're clearly near the end. Nice little detail that I actually really loved. Anyways, back onto the video. After using that magical mouth that Gene has on him that he always had from the Saul and Jimmy days, Jeff comes into it and says, sure, what you got? We come back to the Cinnabon, and here Gene is just working his ass off day after day like he always does. I've never had Cinnabon before, but I gotta say, makes it look pretty tasty. After his shift, he makes 2 Cinnabons and takes them right to the security, meeting up with the people who actually called the ambulance for him when he had the heart attack a couple years ago. And surprise cameo, not only do we get Carol Burnett guest starring in this episode, we also get Jim O'Heir, who is most famously known for playing Jerry in Parks and Rec. Or Gary, depending on, which one you like to go for. It's a nice little cameo that I didn't expect, but also didn't take anything away from me knowing who the actor was. As long as I can see the performance before I see the actor, that's always what matters, so it was just more of a fun little bonus that I knew him from somewhere. As he sits down to eat his Cinnabon, Gene is very careful in the way that he speaks, clearly wanting to get on his good side without knowing exactly what he's talking about, and even starts the timer on his watch, which leads us to know that he's cooking up something more than just that Cinnabon. At the end, when he gets done eating, Gene stops his watch, looks down, and realizes, okay, I know just how long it's going to take him to eat, And he even comes back and keeps going just to make sure that he's got it down. This probably goes on for a couple weeks, or could take a couple of days depending on how fast the montage is going. But my money's on probably a week or two. When this is all said and done, he regroups with Jeff and his friend, who actually is never named to my knowledge. It's just Jeff's friend listed on IMDb. After pacing around the mall and getting in how many steps it takes to get from place to place, they sort of map out where everything is for a test run. And this is where we get the famous line that we saw in the teaser last week's episode, what really had us confused.
1, Armani suits and run! 2, Air Jordan shoes for you!
Honestly, I thought it was just Saul shooting another commercial, but that did kind of confuse me considering that we're just in the Saul timeline now. But it makes sense looking back, considering that this is a department store and Gene already does work in a mall. I will say it is a pretty catchy line. Now this scene is also pretty noticeable because it's also the only time that we ever hear Gene reference Walter. Now to be fair, we haven't had much of Gene talking to other people in this series. Typically it's just offhand hellos and goodbyes, and just if he needs to get out of a situation. So seeing that we're dedicating an entire episode to him, it honestly caught me off guard that we would even have time to bring up Walter. But it's nice, it's quick, and if you know, you know.
The guy is so broke, he can't pay his own mortgage. 1 year later, he's got a pile of cash as big as a Volkswagen. That's crazy.
I do want to say with 3 episodes left in the series, I almost feel confident that you can watch Better Call Saul without ever touching Breaking Bad. Now, the final 3 episodes will very much make this apparent or not, but with 3 episodes left to go and feeling like I never had to have seen Breaking Bad to enjoy this, I feel like that's quite the accomplishment considering this is a prequel. But as we move forward, we get the plan swinging in motion. They move a shipment to the department store, which clearly isn't supposed to be there, and the boss is like, I'm not having this. We don't take this stuff. Like, what are you doing? You guys are dumb. Gene works that magical mouth like he always does and gets them to keep it overnight. It's revealed later that the entire time Jeff was inside of there, and as Gene closes the shop and goes to visit security, the full plan is in motion. Now beforehand, we actually got the boss pointing out that there was a slick spot on the floor. Now, before the plan gets into motion, earlier we had seen the boss talking to someone else saying that there was a spot on the floor that needed cleaning. This was pointed out, and to be honest, anyone with a brain realized this was probably going to come into play later. We didn't know how exactly, maybe a slip, maybe maintenance catching the guy stealing, we didn't exactly know yet. But as we move forward, Gene goes up to security like he always does, starts his watch, and Jeff is on the move, trying to steal as much as he can. And for the most part, he's getting away with it pretty well. He's moving on pace, and just as he's almost done, he slips, which either we knew was going to happen or we thought maintenance was going to catch him. But considering that they closed the doors to the shop, this was obviously the more likely scenario. As it's getting close to the time when the guard typically finishes his Cinnabon, Gene realizes he's going to have to improvise and really hits hard deep with some real knowledge on the Saul Jimmy stuff. Stuff that he probably hasn't even talked about since he's went to hiding. As much as Gene is stalling the guy, it is nice probably for him to get some of this off of his chest to realize that he has nobody at this point. And even though he's stalling, it was pretty nice for him to open up a bit and talk about him for real instead of just this Gene character, even though it's very vague. And then it goes on a little bit longer than he intended it to, and then finally Jeff wakes his ass up and gets out of that store and just hides overnight in the bathroom. And as morning comes, he walks around the store, takes a moment, then leaves with a smile on his face. Back at Jeff's house, hidden in the garage, they're going through all the stuff, and Gene is like, oh yeah, hey, by the way, you can go to jail for quite a long time for all of this stuff. Just, wanting to reinsure that you're not going to pull anything on me, because if I go down, you go down. Completely understandable move. Although, Jeff kind of does strike me as the kind of person that was more starstruck than really intimidating, but you also kind of can't blame Gene for wanting to be very protective, because this is it for him. They almost get caught by Jeff's mom, Marion, but luckily they save the day by making it look like they're working on the car. He goes back inside to help her one last time, and I'm assuming he never has anything to do with them ever again. And at the end of the episode, Gene walks back into the convenience store that they had just robbed, takes a look around, looks at a suit that reminds him of one of his old Saul Jimmy suits, and then leaves. I do want to say that the next episode preview is in black and white. Now, to be fair, episode 9 Fun and Games preview was also in black and white, and that did take place in the main storyline with Jimmy/Saul. If you listen very closely to the dialogue, it sounds like he's telling someone to go. It sounds like it could be Kim, not exactly sure. But hey, on the bright side, time seems to be moving fast for me. Doesn't feel like we'll have to wait long until the next episode. It is week after all. Anyways, I'm excited for these final 3. I hope you guys did really enjoy this. I had a blast this episode. It was a nice little breath of fresh air, even though it did kind of make me feel tense at times. I enjoyed it for what it was. I'm glad that we're getting this Gene stuff out of the way to lead back into our main story, which I really appreciate. I think it's perfectly fine that they wanted to do a full-on Gene episode, and if they wanted to do just one more, I'd be okay with it. But it seems like this might be the end. I'm not completely sure. But something tells me we're not completely done with Gene's storyline. So, that was Season 6, Episode 10 of Better Call Saul, titled Nippy. God, I just love that title. It's like out of all the episode titles this season, they've all been super serious. Then you just get to one near the end that's like, Nippy. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, hit that bell icon. I'm going to have more videos covering each episode coming up soon, week after week. I'm trying to stay true to it, so let's see how it does. I hope you guys are having a fantastic week. Stay safe out there in this heat. And hey, I'll catch you in the next one. Alex out.